have given them. The moment you join, type your name, affiliation, and the country so that other participants can get to know who is present in the webinar. During the webinar, type questions in the Q&A, question and answer feature, which will be answered by the resources persons. And during the questions and answers slot, raise your hand to speak. You may follow the webinar through YouTube live stream. Again, I would like to assure those that might not be able to join that the presentations will be available for download after this webinar. So relax, make an effort to join, but if you can't, these presentations will be available for download. I think as it is now, we can start our webinar. And as I said a little bit from the beginning, this webinar is focusing on participation and inclusivity as success factors.
Ellen, can you kindly put on your camera so that the participants can see you?
Thank you very much. As I said a little bit earlier, this webinar, we are focusing on participation and inclusivity as success factors to water governance in the Nile Basin. At the end of this webinar, we should be able to answer the question of how can transboundary water governance in the Nile Basin be practiced in a more inclusive and participatory manner. What do we mean by inclusive? It means that we are involving participants at grassroots, at middle level, at the government. If we look at vertical inclusivity, moving all the way from the communities to the policy makers at the government, and also moving from the policy makers to the grassroots at the community level. Inclusivity also brings in the transboundary element that we are moving the participation transboundary across borders, especially on shared waters, like our River Nile, which is shared by 10, 11 countries, or other sub-basins that are shared, like Lake Victoria, like the Barra Sobat, like the Blue Nile, like the Nimuru Aswa, like the Kagera that brings in the Ruzumo, or like the Sio Malava Malakisi, or the Mara River Basin. This is inclusivity in a transboundary manner on shared waters, inclusivity in development and cooperation. That is what we are looking at, that this seminar at the end should be able to answer this question. I will now quickly move on to our keynote presenter, and I don't want to give much details. We have an expert who has been working with the Nile Basin Initiative on communication and media aspects. She has also worked on gender aspects and engagement of gender. She has been very fruitful in the development of the gender mainstreaming strategy for the Nile Basin Initiative. And I don't want to go into much details. Her presentation will have her bio attached to it before we send it out. I want to give time to this expert so that we can listen more to what she wants to say, and then we can talk about the other details of her CV or her bio later. This person, this expert that we have in mind is none other than Jane Baitwa, the expert in communication, media, the expert in gender mainstreaming and gender aspects and engagement when we bring in the gender aspects. And gender here doesn't mean women. It means the male gender and the female gender. Jen, you have the floor. You have the platform to tell us your keynote or to give us your keynote address. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Dr. Helen, for that introduction. I would like now to, if you allow me, I would like to share my presentation. Okay, good morning or good afternoon, everybody, wherever you are. I'm going to make a very brief presentation about NBI's work on stakeholder engagement and gender. I'll start my presentation by giving an introduction or a background. I'll share the policy framework that guides NBI's work on gender and stakeholder engagement. I'll then look at what stakeholder engagement activities we have undertaken, and at the same time, look at the gender mainstreaming activities that we have undertaken as NBI. NBI's work on gender and stakeholder engagement started in 2005 when we had the confidence building and stakeholder engagement project. This project ran until 2009, and one of the project development objectives was to ensure full stakeholder engagement in NBI and its projects. And within that project, it had 4 components. And one of the components was to ensure that NBI stakeholders and governments and civil society and all other stakeholders are actively engaged in NBI processes. And so really the issue of gender and stakeholder engagement has been at the heart of the NBI right from the beginning. And even when the project closed, the issue of stakeholder engagement and gender has been something that NBI has taken into consideration. The recent one is within its 10-year strategy, which runs from 2017 to 2027, whereby we have strategic direction 6.5, which seeks to build consensus among the country's public and stakeholders for cooperative basin development and management. So this is to show that as far as NBI is concerned, gender and stakeholder engagement has been considered at every stage. So what guides our work? We have a policy framework, we have the communication and stakeholder engagement strategy. The recent one is 2018 to 2023. And then we have the NBI gender mainstreaming policy and strategy. So at NBI, we believe that we really need a very well-structured engagement and stakeholder engagement. And this is because we believe it will help us to get maximum buy-in for NBI's work. It's also important to enhance ownership, decisions, and outcomes, and to create a common understanding for the basin challenges, benefits of cooperation, and risks of non-cooperation. So this is why we always make sure that we have a well-structured stakeholder engagement. And within the strategy, we have 5 approaches, but one of these 5 approaches focuses on stakeholder engagement. And here it's about identifying and engaging important stakeholders proactively. And our specific action areas include governance meetings, regular large stakeholder forums, like, for example, the Nile Basin Development Forum, or Nile Day, which is held every 22nd of February. We had a recent one this year. We also have national consultations. We have stakeholder-specific or specialized forums based on interests and priorities. For example, women forums, youth, economists. So these are also held. Then innovative platforms like opinion leaders platforms, parliamentarians platforms, And then we utilize strategic partnerships to engage specific stakeholder groups. For example, we do utilize our strategic partners like the NBD, the Nile Basin Discourse, the Global Water Partnership, Eastern Africa, to engage their stakeholders. So this slide here is about who the target groups are, who our stakeholders are. These ones with a red line, these are the NBI staff. We also have those in blue, the NBI governance. And then in green, we have extended governance. And here we have those ministries whose activities include water, for example, energy, agriculture, planning, foreign affairs, and environment. We have the primary stakeholders in orange. All these that are in orange color, those are our primary stakeholders. Then we have our partners, as I said, for example, GWP, NBD, these are our strategic partners. And then those in gray are the secondary stakeholders. So these are the various groups that we do engage in our work of stakeholder engagement. And for the gender mainstreaming policy and strategy, we have, it's about providing a framework for implementation and monitoring of a gender sensitive and responsive NBI institution towards integrated water resources management and poverty reduction. The two documents, the policy and strategy, are useful not only to NBI as an institution, but also to its key stakeholders and partners such as the Nile Basin Discourse. And then it's not a standalone document, but it's one that links with other NBI policies, like the ones that we have in our Nile Basin Sustainability Framework. And the goal of the policy is to create a gender-sensitive work environment. And here really the main aim is to ensure gender equality and equity, while the goal of the strategy is to guide NBI to attain this gender equity and equality in service delivery. So the gender mainstreaming activities since 2006 have involved organizing a landmark workshop, which was dubbed Women of and Women in NBI. And this was a very important workshop that brought together different stakeholders. And during this workshop, members or participants identified recommendations towards gender mainstreaming in NBI programs, projects, and activities. So since then, that time, a number of activities were held following these recommendations. In 2007, an assessment was carried out to establish the extent of gender mainstreaming at NBI, and this resulted in a gender equality action plan. And this workshop was supported by CEDA and funded under Gender Equity and Africa Regional Institution Project. In 2008, a gender assessment was conducted, and this recommended creating institutional frameworks for mainstreaming gender and developing and implementing a gender-related capacity building program for NBI staff. Of course, it was important that NBI's capacity, the staff of the NBI, their capacity is built to be able to mainstream gender. And in 2010, a gender working group was established. This was very important because it's the group that continued to take forward the gender activities within NBI. And the group was comprised of different organizations, including partner organizations like the Nile Basin Discourse. In 2013, a full gender audit at NBI's NELSAP was conducted. And in 2014, an assessment documented best practices in use across NBI's programs, projects, and this really was to continue to work towards gender mainstreaming within NBI. And the subs have also done a lot towards gender mainstreaming. For example, in developing projects, it's assured that they are gender inclusive, right from feasibility studies and project design. And in intro, one thing that they really follow very closely is during the internship and young professionals program to ensure that we do have gender mainstreamed within that program. And out of the 180 participants that have so far benefited, 20% of these are female. And then there is ample gender consideration to particularly female-headed households in the design of the Rusumo project. That was very much considered. So for our gender work, we have 3 implementation levels, which we refer to as the levels of change. I earlier on mentioned the regional gender working group, and this is comprised of staff from the Secretariat, from the Eastern Nile Technical Regional Office, and from the Nile Equatorial Lake Subsidiary Action Program Coordination Unit, and then from the Nile Basin Discourse. Then level 2 is comprised of the gender focal points, and these are at the Secretariat, at Intro in Addis, and NELSAP in Kigali. And then level 3 is the national gender focal points, and these are attached to the NBI National Office. So these are what we refer to as the levels of change. So these 3 levels are now very key in ensuring that gender is mainstreamed within NBI's work. And for now, we are working on a new and updated NBI gender mainstreaming policy, as well as the strategy. The document is, the draft is almost finalized, and it's with governance for approval. And the purpose here is to continue to guide us in our work as far as gender mainstreaming is concerned, because the earlier strategy and policy has expired, and so it is now time to update it. So we are waiting for governance to have this approved very soon. And that's the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jen. Jen Waitwa has given us a very rich history of inclusivity and engendering of the Nile. She has given us the gender mainstreaming policy and strategy, and especially the levels of change, the 3 levels of change. So as we have that in mind, if there is any question, please put it in the chat so that we can ask Jane afterwards. But otherwise, as it is now, Jane, thank you so much. And I totally agree with you that NBI is working very closely with NBD. I will now quickly move on to the next presenter. And our next presenter is Mr. Ayenu Tessera Fenta. This is my own colleague here in the office. He's our regional monitoring and evaluation expert, and he's going to present to us the stakeholder partnership for inclusive transboundary water governance in the Nile Basin, the NBI-NBD partnership. Now, what I can say is that NBD has been working on transboundary partnership with NBI, especially the subsidiary action programs. And this is a very interesting area that is going to be covered by our own monitoring and evaluation expert. His bio will be attached to his presentation, so I don't want to go through the details of his bio. I want to quickly give him the opportunity to tell us a little bit more on the stakeholder partnership for inclusive transboundary water governance in the Nile, the NBI-NBD partnership case study. Ayenu Tessera, the platform is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Ellen. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. My name is Ayenu Tessera Fenta, Regional Monitoring and Evaluation Officer for the Nile Basin Discourse, based in Entebbe, Uganda. So allow me to share my PowerPoint presentation. I hope everyone can see the screen. So the title of my presentation is Stakeholder Partnership for Inclusive Transboundary Water Governance in the Nile.
For your camera.
Okay. I think you can see me now.
You.
So I will quickly go through these outlines. I will start my presentation by the question, why inclusive water governance? Then I will quickly proceed to establishment of NBI and NBD and the strategic partnership between these two organizations towards inclusive transboundary water governance. Results obtained so far out of this partnership, challenges faced and lessons learned, and then conclusion and recommendations. I will ask question, why is the need for inclusive water governance? The obvious challenge is that there is critical water challenge in the world in managing water, given that water has huge temporal and spatial variation. In some areas, too little water, in some other areas, too much, and on top of that, most of water resources are polluted. So scientists, researchers say that most of these challenges have come from the failure to govern water wisely in the face of quite a number of emerging issues. So the question now is the Nile Basin exception to this challenge? The answer is no. The Nile Basin is likely to experience severe water insecurity due to lack of proper, effective, and inclusive water governance. So water governance in the Nile Basin faces technical, social, environmental, economic, and political challenges, most of which are manifested in food insecurity, climate hazards, energy insecurity, and environmental degradation. So for us, an all-inclusive transboundary water governance is not an option. So we need inclusive water governance that involves every sector of the society at all walks of life. We need researchers and academicians to generate new ideas, new concepts, new tools that are key in water governance. We need water resource communities to reflect ground realities. And we also need politicians for making right decisions, right choices. So water governance is not left to politicians. It is not only the business of researchers. It is not only the business of water resource communities. It involves and concerns everyone else around. So that is why we say inclusive water governance is key for proper water management. Recognizing the fact that the existing status quo on the management and utilization of the Nile waters can no longer continue, the Nile Basin governments reached a consensus to establish the Nile Basin Initiative in 1999. Again, out of the need for stakeholder engagement in the Nile Basin development and management. Again, riparian governments, development partners, and civil societies agreed to establish the Nile Basin Discourse which was formally established in 2003 as the culmination of a process that started in 2001. So now NBD is a strategic, operational, and responsive approach by civil society, and it provides a non-governmental pillar to the Nile Basin cooperation processes and dialogues. So NBI and NBD partnership started in 2006, and we have a strategic involvement at the policy level, at the top policy level. We have involvement at operational level. We have involvement at ground level, at responsive level. So partnership is not hanging somewhere at the policy level. It is not limited to operational level. It is not limited to the ground level. The partnership between NBI and NBD cuts all structures and all levels. And we have been working around the clock in all these structures. What are the results obtained so far out of this partnership? I would confidently say that there is a foundation laid down for sustainable water resource management because of the partnership between NBI and NBD. I would say there is a culture of dialogue that has been created and developed in the Nile Basin. Most of the differences among the parties can now be settled or voiced through the NBI or NBD platforms. I would say there is increased level of trust and confidence in cooperation, this time in Momin than ever before. The indication for this is there is a move to design regional joint multi-purpose projects. A lot of examples are already on the ground in this area. There is regional power trade transmission interconnection that involves Sudan and Ethiopia. We have Rusumo Hydropower that connects Rwanda, Burundi, Tanzania. We have flood protection project involving Ethiopia and Sudan. There has been quite a number of training, knowledge generation, experts development in the basin, several studies, publications, both by NBI and NBD. So now these two organizations, NBD and NBI, have become hubs of knowledge for researchers and public readers. Quite a number of policies on gender, as the keynote speaker already has stated, on climate, environment, and social sustainability, developed to guide best practices. So this is a live, exemplary partnership that needs to be emulated by others in and out. Of course, our partnership has not been smooth all the time. It has been going through ups and downs, quite a number of hurdles. One of the challenges we have been facing, was resource limitation, especially on the part of NBD. Resource limitation means limiting the operation and function of NBD, and that means that our partner NBI may not get required contribution from its partner NBD. So when there was a resource limitation, NBD used to, I would say, limit its function and operation. So if NBD is not properly and regularly fulfilling its expected roles, our partner NBI may lose value in NBD. So that is a huge damage to our partnership. So NBD has been going through a very hostile legal environment for CSOs in the Nile Basin countries. That again is a limiting factor for NBD to operate in its fullest capacity, and that also limits its role expected to play in the eyes of our partner at the Nile Basin Initiative. These intra and interstate conflicts in the basin has also restricted NBD from playing effective roles in transboundary water resource dialogue. Conflicts have created challenges in reaching out and mobilizing grassroots communities and getting real-time information that is critically needed by policymakers. We have been facing a huge expectation from the members. The members see NBD as their resource mobilizer or funder. So when there is a resource limitation going down to members, so we lost support and cooperation from our members. So that also basically limits the operation and function of NBD. In earlier times, there was a preconceived notion on the part of the NBI of perceiving NBD as watchdog instead of as collaborative partner. So these were some of the challenges that NBD especially faced along the way of its operation. The lessons learned, I would say that policy influencing work takes time and therefore needs a continuous, broad-based and sustainable funding. So there is need for time and continuous funding, especially in this area where NBD is engaged in. Civil society advocacy positions are to be taken by governments if they are based on positive recommendations, not just negative criticisms. It has been proved that in a tense hydro-political context like the Nile, avoiding political discussions and focusing on people-to-people interactions through organizing exchange visits and public diplomacy is a very key instead of confronting in the political arena. So that seems to be productive. So there is a need for managing expectations. And we have learned that in partnership, the time needed to build trust and confidence should not be undermined. In conclusion and recommendations, in conclusion, I would say the River Nile has been the lifeline for the population inhabiting the basin. NBI and NBD need to continue exerting efforts to underline the fact that there is no viable alternative to upstream-downstream cooperation. NBD and NBI need to continue generating new and innovative approaches for dialogue in the basin to enhance trust and confidence among the riparian states until the Nile cooperation holds its solid ground, probably until the envisaged Nile Basin River Commission is established and beyond. And a recommendation to build sustainable trust and confidence among basin citizens, regular use of water diplomacy and people-to-people exchange visits are very key so that the Nile citizens themselves start promoting equitable and reasonable use of the shared water resources. NBD needs to focus on adding value to Nile cooperation, complementing to, but not repeating what NBI does, so as to forge collaboration and partnership. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ayenu, for that presentation. I think we've learned a lot about inclusive water governance, where Ayenu has moved with us from the 3 stages where there is inclusivity, the strategic, the operational, and also the response at all the 3 levels. And from his presentation, we have also learned that NBI and NBD are trying to move from theory, policy to practice. Inclusivity at multi-sector level, including everybody in these dialogue platforms that can be set in collaboration of the two organizations. Thank you very much, Ayenu. You have also come up with the challenges that are faced by NBD. You've come up also with some recommendations. And with that, I would like us to move to the next presenter. I thank you so much, Ayenu, and I would like to move to the next presenter, who in this case will be Ms. Tabitha Muliambiti. Tabitha is an expert also on underground water and gender. Tabitha comes from the School of Women and Gender Studies, Makerere University. So she is an expert and she's going to talk to us about groundwater resources in selected transboundary aquifers, a case for gender mainstreaming. We are looking at gender, but bringing in the aquifers, the underground water. That is very important, especially when one wants to put up a borehole and tap on water in the aquifer, and making sure that we are not polluting the water that the woman will get and cook food for the family with that. Therefore, we will listen to Tabitha to give us her paper on this enhancing conjunctive management of service and groundwater resources. So looking at the two aspects, the groundwater, the underground water, and how we can engender in the management of these two versions of water resources that is available in some of the aquifers that she might have looked at. Tabitha, the floor is yours. Please go ahead and give us your presentation.
Yes, thank you very much, and good morning to everybody. I hope you can hear me well, because I have had difficulties with the network myself. I've experienced presenters breaking. I hope you can hear me. And the reason I'm not putting on my video is because the network will completely go bad. It cannot accommodate the use of the video at the same time. However, I will show my face for people to see who is speaking. Is that all right?
Thank you very much, Tabitha. Please go ahead.
Hello?
Thank you, Tabitha. We hear you. Please go ahead.
Yes, are we? Great. Great. I'll show my face briefly, and then I switch off that video to have clarity. And also the other thing is I failed to use the PowerPoint templates that were provided to me. And so I did not prepare a PowerPoint. However, I'll just speak about my experiences with my paper. I'll mention outstanding things in the 10 minutes that have been given to me. And so this is Tabitha. And then I go straight to the paper. I remove the video. I want to say that I'm not an expert. Sorry. That I'm not an expert in aquifers or any scientific explanations of water and water resources, but I'm only a gender expert who has had an opportunity to work on some projects to do with water. My work with the Nile Basin was to engender a program proposal. And what was interesting about this program is they considered gender to be important from the design of the proposal, and thanks to the donors. And then that meant, therefore, that if it's at the beginning, then it can go through at the end. However, I have prepared my paper based on the experiences with gender in only this time I worked on this project, and I focus on the challenges and some recommendations on how best gender can be integrated sustainably. I keenly listened to Jen's presentation, and I agree with every word she talks about the degree and depth of gender mainstreaming in the organization and in their work across the region. Then I also note strongly that throughout the Nile Basin region, there is a better understanding and more awareness of gender issues involved in water management. And their range of initiatives have been introduced to improve at many levels to improve the situation. The benefits of involving women in all aspects of water use is therefore reflected in almost all the government guidelines and project designs in the region. Management of water resources is seen as a very important entry point for gender mainstreaming. And indeed, there is a lot of optimism around women's participation and in decision making, as well as in management. And so everybody is looking forward to water services that are more gender responsive and more representative of women's voices. However, as I said already, I base my presentation on a number of challenges that I realized as I was doing my work and as I pondered on the outcome of the project. First to note was from a personal experience, this is not based on any research, was that I was working with a team of other 10 purely geologists, water engineers, and water scientists, and I was the gender person. That already meant that the little time with which we worked with the team did not give enough depth or enough length or sustained discussion for gender to not only sink in the minds of the experts or the consultants, but also for gender to get a stronghold within the results framework that was being developed. I could already sense gender evaporating from the word go because of the overwhelming minority voice of gender from the start. And I from this experience, I noticed that so one way to go forward to gender mainstreaming in the Nile Basin is to commit wholeheartedly to a transformative approach to gender mainstreaming rather than a project-based and short-term discussion and integration of gender, which tended to evaporate anyway, and which tended to, at some point, present distractions in their scientific discussion. And so where the basis is for sure scientific, but my experience shows that the scientific teams need to be a starting point for training in gender mainstreaming, because the Nile Basin is putting a lot of emphasis on its institutions and its structures for gender mainstreaming. And they're leaving out a wide range of consultants and experts who they are using to do their work on a day-to-day basis. And these people are the ones who are producing the knowledge that is being used. These people are designing the management structures and are taking forth the agenda. And there is no intended benefit plan to target the consultant world for gender mainstreaming. And from the beginning, I just thought that, oh, are there scientists who know anything about gender? Would they then be targeted to prepare these scientific papers, which analyze the chemical, the physical, the geological aspects of the aquifers and the water compositions? Are there scientists who even understand society at all? So, and I was thinking, okay, from the start, the sociologists, the gender people, and other social scientists should be viewed with equal value and equal weight as the scientists, if we are to translate this very scientific information into everyday use of ordinary people, men and women, using water. And so that was my unscientific experience. But regarding the paper, I have followed up with the paper. That consultant.
Ellen, we seem to have lost Dr. Tabitha.
Yes, I don't know where she has disappeared. She said she had a challenge with internet. Now I don't see her.
Perhaps we can move on and give her the opportunity when she reconnects to complete her presentation.
I think that is a good idea. Yeah, participants, we have to move. Although we were listening to a very interesting paper from Tabitha from University of Makerere here in Uganda, who was talking about engendering a program on aquifers, translating scientific to practice through transformative gender, engendering of the Nile or the aquifers. We will wait. If she comes back, then we can call her to come and give us what is remaining, because her paper is very interesting. If she does not come back, then we will make effort to attach her paper and her bio so that whoever is keen on it can dig deeper in this paper, interrogate it, and maybe get back to her for any issues that might emerge out of the paper. For now, I would like to move to the next presenter as the session progresses. We have Mohammed Tofik from Wageningen University. He has a paper which is very interesting. He would like to present to us the enabling environment in participation for water secure world and give us a summary of that paper. Tofik comes from the Water Resources Management, and he is the chair for that Water Resources Management group in Wageningen University in the Netherlands. Tofik, I have been to that university. It's a great university. And I believe that this paper you would like to present to us is an opportunity for us as participants to learn a little bit more on the enabling environment. I don't know whether you will delve into the endogenous environment, exogenous environment, But Tofik, you have the platform. Please go ahead and present the paper to us.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to join this session of the webinar and the Nile Basin Development Forum. I'm a PhD candidate at Wageningen University in the Netherlands. I also work in collaboration with the International Water Management Institute in the regional office. I would like to share the PowerPoint presentation, if that is okay.
Yes, that is okay. Go ahead.
Okay. So please let me know when you can see the presentation.
Yes, we can see it. Please go ahead.
Okay. So the topic of my paper presentation is the enabling environment to participatory processes and how to look at participation from a negotiation way of thinking or negotiation-based approach. So ideally in the Nile Basin, all the countries of the basin are trying to maximize their benefits from the Nile River, which is a rational thing to do. But doing that in a unilateral way might actually fire back and end up in increasing conflict, in conflict situation that might escalate to even more confrontation or problematic. And that actually can lead to the opposite of maximizing the benefits and can lead to reduce the wheel of development in those countries. So the question is, or what we say in this presentation is maximization of opportunities needs cooperation, but which is a lot of people knows, but the question is how to achieve that, how to make this transformation from unilateral thinking, unilateral quest to development to a more cooperative one. This is a diagram that represents the dynamics of participatory processes. We have actually different stages. These dashed line show the framework of participation, the contour of participation, and the lowest degrees I call it the arena of contestation, where these actually not very cooperative, and where stakeholders or actors try to defend their presumed rights, to secure their presumed rights. So everyone is just talking without not much hearing from each other. Then the highest level, a little bit, is the arena of struggle, and this is where actors or stakeholders try to act strategically, okay, to avoid existing restriction to reach common ground with each other. Then if we go a little bit higher than this arena, we go to the arena of negotiation, which actually where stakeholders are communicatively working together to reach agreement, which is very, very important stage in any participation, because the next level after negotiation is cooperation. Or, as you see in the diagram, it's a dynamic process. So it can lead to cooperation or can go down to, again, to struggle or contestation. But when we reach cooperation, we realize that stakeholders or actors now working together to achieve common goals or at least synergistic goals. Outside this framework, we find unilateral actions, which is outside the whole process of participation, where stakeholders just try to take action that they see in their own benefits without consulting or without communication with the other actors. And also in unilateralism, the actors try to build bilateral agreements with external actors or external stakeholders in order to strengthen their position. So each of these arenas has particular characteristics But if we just go directly to arena of cooperation, we see that we have actors proposing ideas and trying to implement those ideas. And the interaction are mostly collaborative, okay? And we have common grounds that can bring all the actors together. On the contrary, if we would see the arena of contestation, the dominating characteristic of this arena is we have legal objections, third-party intervention, and so on. And the interaction between the actors is mostly defensive, and there is no common ground for participation. So, what we propose here in this presentation is a framework that can this framework do not achieve better negotiation, but at least prepare the environment to enable this negotiation or participation to take place. So this framework has 4 pillars. One of them is incentive compatibility of the process, the urgency, then responsibility delegation or willingness of actors to receive responsibility, and then independent facilitation. I will go to each one briefly and say what does it mean. The first one is incentive compatibility. And here it is important that we ensure that the process of negotiation or participation is, has both benefits for the individual actors or the individual countries and the group of countries. So it has to combine the individual rationality and the group rationality. So if the countries are participating without clear idea of what the benefits from this process, then this is a very, very critical position. Then the second point is the urgency. How you define the problem and who defines the problem. This is very important. The problem has to be defined in a clear way, and each actor, each country has to articulate its own problem in this process. Then responsibility the delegation, and this is the degree of responsibility that each actor or each country are willing to bear in this process, because participation means that we are dividing the control and responsibility over a number of actors. So if one of these actors are not willing to receive or carry on this responsibility, then this is a very deficit in the process. Then the last one is independent facilitation. This is essential pillar in the enabling environment framework, because we can see that in most of the times there is a lack of trust between the involved actors or the involved countries, if we can talk about the Nile Basin. So the lack of trust can be bridged by having independent facilitator or facilitating organization that has trust that can bring all these actors together. So if we apply this on the Nile Basin countries, so the first scenario is which correspond to the arena of struggle, when we have high urgency, the existing independent facilitation, but on the other side, we don't have enabling legal or technical or regulatory tools to allow these processes to take place. So we have all other pillars existing. So without the enabling legal or technical or regulatory tools, then we have this kind of triangle shape and incomplete process. But which I don't think is the case in the Nile Basin or in any in the Nile Basin, is because we have a lot of enabling legal, technical, regulatory tools. The second scenario is when we have the technical, and you have the independent facilitation, and you have enabling technical regulatory tools, and actors are willing to receive responsibility, but the process, the whole process, is not incentive compatible for some countries or some actors. In that case, countries don't feel that they will get benefits by being involved in the process. And this is very dangerous because in that case, they will look at different agreements or arrangements that they see some benefits for their own countries. The second two scenarios are where the enabling environment for participation is partially or completely realized, where you have incentive compatibility, you have the enabling legal, technical, regulatory tools, and you have the active role of the independent facilitation that increase the willingness of the actors of the countries to participate and reach common ground. So this full realization of the enabling environment does not take place in one night, but it needs time to be realized. It needs a lot of effort and gradual negotiation between the countries to achieve this important step. So that was my to take much of your time, and happy to receive questions, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mohammed. That was a very interesting presentation, and I'm sure the participants have learned a number of things out of that presentation. I liked the area where you touched on arena, moving up. We've been using that kind of arena for empowerment, but in this case, the arena is used for the enabling environment, moving from contestation, struggle, negotiation, until cooperation. I think that was very interesting. And then you come up and bring the enabling environment in the middle, in a circle, which is covered by the incentive. We've been focusing on incentives, the benefits, and all that, but you bring out 4 areas: incentives, the urgency, the responsibility, delegation, and you also bring the independent facilitation, the trust. That is the social element. There has to be trust, because if we are going to look at enabling environment and maybe we are dealing with sovereign states, then we need to bring in the trust. And you go further to develop scenarios linking the enabling environment to the arena, the 4 arena levels. Thank you so much, Mohammed. And for those who have questions, please put them in the chat. And I would like to still remind the participants that this presentation will be uploaded, will be available. And also the bio of Mohammed will be attached for those who find emerging issues from the presentation, to get in touch with him in his office at Wageningen University in the Netherlands. At this point, I'll say thank you so much, Mohammed, and we move back to Tabitha, the doctor, our own doctor from Makerere University, who had challenges with internet. We've learned that now she's in a position at least to give us a summary of the good presentation that she was giving us, which was touching on an engendering or enhancing conjunctive management when it comes to aquifers and also surface water. Dr. Tabitha, please go ahead and give us the summary of your presentation.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'm sorry, I just went off at some point. I didn't realize that I had gone off, and I continued on and on and for a while, but it something really. This morning, my network is really bad and I'm missing a lot of presentations, people talking and breaking. I really pray that I'm able to make a summary, maybe in 3 minutes, regarding what I'm saying, my paper is saying. So I will summarize according to 3 major outstanding challenges that I point out in my paper and some strategies as I go along. The most important one is that the cosmetic approach or the institutional approach of gender mainstreaming has not seeped into the iota of Nile Basin functioning. It's far from reaching the philosophy of the Nile Basin and functioning, and as well as its partners. The people who bring great value through their expertise to the Nile Basin, who provide the working papers, who provide the groundwork, the ground-breaking work in science on water and geology, have no idea how society functions, have no idea how gender relations affect their presentations, or how their results can be better utilized or better understood for everyday consumption. And so a transformative approach will require that every vein of the Nile Basin, including its partners, are put on board to appreciate gender mainstreaming. And this is a long term, but also demanding on the side of resources. One of the major challenges is resource allocation is thin. It's usually very thin, and it's a very small thread of funding, which is not consistent with gender mainstreaming. Sometimes the resources even stop at the project design level, and no resources follow through into the implementation. And so we are thinking, once this the philosophy of gender is integrated in the iota of Nile Basin key functions, then gender budgeting will come on board as a core function. Throughout the work that I did with this team, the issues of gender budgeting, the issues of the need to integrate some transformative issues around gender norms and other social norms that really prevent the useful access of women to this groundwater, fresh water, which is the heart of their livelihood, are not properly integrated or understood. And so gender mainstreaming should shift intentionally from being a quick fix to letting it diffuse into every aspect, including the programs around. I didn't have enough discussion with the people at the discourse, at Nile Basin discourse. I only talked to the executive director. But however, I realized that although there is a close relationship with what they bring on board with the Nile Basin initiative, there is some room for maneuver to increase the relationship even closer. Because I noticed that during the assignment, on determining the fresh water, the underground water, a lot of partners in the Nile Basin discourse could have added excess value to the process of designing this program, which opportunity was left to go untapped. The other one is there is clearly a difference in application and understanding and interpretation of gender and what gender mainstreaming entails across the Nile Basin states. And the cultural differences are also sometimes stark. And also the level at which they are intending to take gender mainstreaming to the heart of the matter is also varied. Uganda is promising, but also implementation issues are a problem. Tanzania is a little detached from the policy. You know, I discuss in my paper country by country the level of integration and the level of willingness to go the extra mile. But I realize that the capacity is very low. The capacity for gender mainstreaming is very low. The time I was with this project, working with this project, I did not have the opportunity to meet with the gender team. I kept wondering, is it a virtual team? Is it a team that lives on Mars? Somehow we didn't meet with this team, something I was looking forward to, which means that I could have had a better discussion and more enrichment into the work I was doing, which I did not. So I got a sense that the capacity is very low. The willingness is there, but the capacity is very low. And we need, there is need for intentional programs to bolster the skill range of all partners in gender mainstreaming. And this is really very true, because all the experts I worked with had no idea what gender really meant, which meant that after my departure, there was already a gap. And the other one is to do with the representation. Gender mainstreaming requires presence of women in important places, which I did not see outrightly in the gender during my work. There is a vacuum everywhere. There is lack of presence in even the critical areas where a woman's voice would add value. And I looked at also the levels of the water committees. Many water committees even don't have women.
Hello, Doctor, have you disappeared again?
Yes, we seem to have lost her again.
Yeah, I think we seem to have lost the good doctor again. This internet is a challenge. I can't blame her. We also normally experience this kind of dilemma at the NBD Secretariat. So I am of the understanding that it is possible also to happen here and there. Doctor, you are back. Please, can you finish?
Yes. Oh, sorry, I just lost now. I'll just say 2 lines to finish this. So in summary, I'm saying a transformative approach is the way to go. And this is a sector which has nurtured gender mainstreaming in many of its policies and structures. And there is indeed a spirit of willingness. However, the real hands-on, there is a need to go this step to soil the hands, to really do the real gender mainstreaming with impact. Because the national level policies in all countries speak favorably to the need for gender mainstreaming and provide guidelines. The Nile Basin itself has guidelines across the states, and these are very important entry points into nurturing a sustainable program. Gender mainstreaming in terms of intentional resource allocation and intentionally targeting people who drive not only as managers, but also as experts and consultants who are behind the scientific groundbreaking work in the Nile Basin should be a target for gender training. And there should be intentional lookout for consultants with a background in social sciences, although they are scientists. And I also think that even the methods of operation, fieldwork, when it's not when teams are sent out there, they should be social scientists, they should be hardcore scientists, but also as a matter of importance, they should be gender practitioners and activists as well. There is a detachment from the women's movement. This cannot meaningful mainstreaming cannot happen without an intentional involvement of the women's movement who have this urge for policy advocacy and activism. Gender mainstreaming is not purely technical. It requires some elements of intentional activism and policy advocacy. I thank you for this extra minutes, and I apologize also for the breaking, and I thank you very much for making me part of this. My paper can be shared, and also if allowed, I could share my PowerPoint in my own way, not using your templates. I thank you very much. Thank you, Chair, for your patience.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Thank you very much, Dr. Davida. You've tried to fight against the internet breaking here and there.
Yeah.
And at least you have completed your paper, which is quite interesting. And I would like to inform the participants that the paper will be shared, and also the doctor's bio will be shared. So if there are any issues of discussion, one can get direct to the doctor on this very important research that has been undertaken with the NBI and also the partners of the NBI, looking at engendering a program that focuses on aquifers and some of the surface water. A number of issues came up, for example, inclusivity even at research. To be able to translate that research into practice, and the doctor emphasizes the transformative approach, which also brings in the operationalization of gender, bringing in the society, the social norms and the rules, and the gender aspect at the society level, how gender is looked at. She has also highlighted the challenges of funding, that funding is thin and is not available in a sustainable manner. So this has to be looked into. Another challenge that the doctor brings up is that application and understanding are a bit distant. So this is an issue that needs to be looked in, how the application of gender mainstreaming, even this transformative agenda, how it brings in the application and the understanding of the stakeholder on this engendering aspect, bringing in inclusivity in research. Because when there is inclusivity, then all these transformative approach aspects will be looked into. And then the application will also bring in the understanding. With that, I say thank you so much, Dr. Davida, and thank you so much to other presenters. Our keynote presenter, that is Jane Vitor. Our presenter from the Nile Basin Discourse, Mr. Ayenu Tessera. Then we have our presenter. We have Tabitha here, we have Mohammed, and we have learned a lot out of these presenters. And now I would like to move on and ask or request our NITAC chair, who comes from our riparian state, Rwanda, representing all the TAC members in the 10 Nile Basin riparian states. Our chair here, Jacqueline Nyirakamana. Jacqueline, please, you can go ahead and give us the key issues about participation and inclusivity. The bio for Ms. Jacqueline, our TAC chair, will also be attached to the key issues that she's going to give us in this presentation. She's very important because she is sitting on a chair where she's chairing all the TAC, Technical Advisory Committee members of the Nile, covering all the 10 Nile riparian states. Ms. Jacqueline, Madame Jacqueline, s'il vous plaît.
Good morning, all. Thank you, Dr. Ellen. And thank you, the presenters. I'm so sorry, first of all, I couldn't follow all presentation due to the internet connection. And also, I'm surprised because I didn't prepare anything. I was thinking just to participate and follow and learn from the researchers, which really did a good job. But I will try really to say something on these papers. I followed from Dr. Tabitha regarding the gender in a groundwater aquifers, a transboundary groundwater aquifers. Yes, she's right. She's right. Gender mainstreaming, it's very sensitive in water governance. But also, what I can say, it's because there is a lot of initiatives. Initiatives from country members, initiative from Nile-based initiative. As country members, we think about gender mainstreaming in our program and project. For Rwanda, I think gender mainstreaming is very really sensitive issue. And we have been really try in the water, let me say in the water sector, in the preparation of policy, law, we try to involve gender because gender are very sensitive and key stakeholders in this sector. We are doing some catchment committees on the district level. And what I can say here, among the committee, we make sure the vice president is a lady, and we have representative of gender, and we have representative of NGOs and civil society, but 70% we make sure there will be a ladies. So that is a good initiative. I think even in other country members, they are doing the same, even though they maybe means or some, she said what I can say, the willingness is there, but maybe capacity is very low, yes. But we are trying really to incorporate the gender mainstreaming in our institution program. So if I come back to Nile-based initiative, recently we have discussed on the NBI gender mainstreaming policy and strategy. And I think Jen, she's better to explain because she led the policy, the document. But we discussed as the governance through TAC members. Then we provide comment, and soon we will adopt that document. Maybe we approve, then the com members we adopt the document. So the document, it will be really, it will provide the framework, the gender NBI gender mainstreaming policy. It will provide the framework for the implementation and the monitoring of a gender sensitive and response NBI institution. And this will not be for NBI program only, but it will be useful for all NBI stakeholders. Of course, including researchers, including national stakeholders, including project managers, including also civil society. I think this document will help us really to move forward with the inclusiveness of gender mainstreaming in NBI program and project. And hope also after adoption of this project, this document, it will be shared through NBI website as all documents are shared there. Then many stakeholders we access the document, and this will help really our stakeholders. Also, as you know, NBI has its program starts NESA Puentro. I think if you read the document for one example for the project which are being implemented, the Rusumo regional Rusumo hydroelectric project between Rwanda, Burundi, and Tanzania. Really, you will see the gender mainstreaming is there. We have a number of ladies. We have some projects which are led by ladies, and really it's very, very important to our country. The population, the beneficiaries from the project, we make sure really the ladies, disability people, and other necessary people are benefited from that project. It's what I can say from the paper of Tabitha, Dr. Tabitha. Dr. Ellen, if you can remind me another question, because I couldn't follow another presentation due to the connection. Regarding inclusiveness, if I'm not wrong, inclusiveness, I think inclusiveness is there for participation and inclusivity as a success factor to water governance in the Nile Basin. I think most of us, we know the journey from Nile Basin Initiative, from its creation from 1999 up to now. There were a lot of, what can I say, forum, discussions about the legal document, which is CFA. All were included, researchers, decision makers, civil society, and even the gender. I think all participated in NBI program and project. if I go back, I think Dr. Ellen, she's senior even in this NBDF. We used to have those shared vision program. Under the shared vision program, there were a lot of projects. And I remember there was even capacity building for women and youth. It's called which program which was led by Emmanuel. It's capacity building and stakeholder engagement, like that. So from those program, shared vision program, we tried. I'm saying, when I say we, it's NBI and country members. We tried really to see which project can be implemented in the country members on ground, tangible project. We tried really to train people through those framework. There was maybe I can say capacity building in water resources management, but in that training, in those workshops, the ladies or youth were also included. Even though those shared vision program were closed, but we start with the other tangible studies, investment project, but also the ladies or inclusiveness of all key stakeholders of Nile Basin were participated in all activities. So up to now, I think even through NBDF, as Dr. Ellen said, there is a memorandum of understanding between NBDF and the NBI, and that MOU is being implemented. So it means NBDF can also help NBI really to reach its vision through inclusiveness of all communities, all stakeholders, so that they can sit together and move from the theory, as you said, to the implementation of the project, of the program, of the strategy. All those really, it's like to work together for reach our shared vision. Dr. Ellen, can you maybe remind me what I couldn't even capture all your questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Jacqueline, for that exhaustive summary of what has been covered. For the presentations where you might have missed due to problems of internet, we are going to have somebody give a summary at the end of this webinar, before the webinar closes. So rest assured that the issues will be captured, and the participants will get to know what to take home after this webinar. I think at this moment, before we go to the summary at the end, I would like to know if there are any questions from the participants. I don't know whether we can go to the chat and look at the questions in the chat room, and then see whether they have already been answered or they can be answered for the participants' benefit. There are some questions in the chat room. If I pick this one, how has the role of stakeholder participation and involvement been effective in the implementation of projects in the Nile Basin, especially with respect to meeting the myriad of water needs. I don't know whether this can be answered by Jane or it can also be answered by Ayeno. Jane, are you there?
Helen, I am.
Did you get the question?
Please repeat it. Thank you.
How has the role of stakeholder participation and involvement been effective in the implementation of projects in the Nile Basin, especially with respect to meeting the myriad of water needs?
Thank you very much. At the NBI, especially with the subsidiary action programs, where we have the various investment projects managed from there, it's one of the key things to involve stakeholders during project preparation and as well as implementation, although implementation is not a role of NBI, but in terms of preparing the project, it's made sure that various stakeholders are engaged from the very beginning and that they will also be consulted along the implementation process. So yes, we do have a process to engage stakeholders right from the time the project is being conceptualized through until implementation by the member states. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jane. I hope that answers that question, but in case there is a follow-up question, please get in touch with Jane. Her bio will be attached to her paper and more details can be given. There is another question and it reads as follows. How do we reconcile what Dr. Tabitha is saying about inadequate gender mainstreaming in the Nile Basin with what Jane Baitwa said about the gender strategy being in place and being implemented at various levels? I think if Dr. Tabitha is still there, maybe she can touch on her transformative approach to see how this can be reconciled. And Jane, you can also touch on it. Dr. Tabitha, are you there?
Yes, please.
Yeah, please talk about this transformative approach that you have underlined in your paper, how it can enhance the reconciling of what you talked about, the inadequate gender mainstreaming in the Nile Basin, and how that can be reconciled with what is now happening, a strategy that has been revised, improved, and put in place with a policy, with a plan.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, indeed, I have looked at the proposal for the new strategy, the revisions therein. They're much deeper. They're much deeper and much strengthened. And everything that Jane mentioned about the structures in place and other guidelines is true. There is a lot of willingness and actual steps into what I could consider the beginning of gender mainstream, that they are on the road to the transformative approach. But my fear is getting stuck in the institutional capacity building of gender mainstreaming, where you have a gender policy, you have the gender officers, and you have put a few women in key structures. But the philosophy and the ideology of the organization is still male-centric. It's to the level that almost all scientists who inform the consultants and experts who are guiding the agenda of the Nile Basin Initiative have not had exposure to gender mainstreaming. It's what is already on the ground is a good starting point to get into the depth, to intentionally get into the depth of what would be considered transformative, to look into the norms, not only norms and other social norms and beliefs, as well as attitude, not only for staff and partners, but also to go down to the ground and understand better the social norms that are preventing the communities from enjoying the services that the Nile Basin intends to provide. And the gender inequality matrix at the ground is very important in informing what is happening at the Nile Basin at the partner or state level.
Thank you so much, Doctor. Thank you so much, Doctor.
Thank you.
I hope I'm not stopping you on the way. It's because we are running out of time.
Fine.
I wanted to ask somebody else also to make an input into that question, because in Jen's presentation, there was mention of Nile Basin discourse, working in collaboration with the NBI. Ayenu Tesera, can you also make an input into this?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, that is true. NBI and NBD have been working in close collaboration since 2006 on a number of issues, especially on the issue of stakeholder involvement, on gender equality. And I would say that has helped to register recommendable results in the projects. As I earlier mentioned, NBD as a partner of NBI was very key in reaching out and mobilizing communities in the project areas to convince the project area communities that the project is for them, it is to their benefit. So we created quite a number of dialogue platforms where, communities were convinced and stand guard for those projects, watershed projects, power and transmission interconnection projects, especially communities along the transmission lines. We organized discussions on the relocation and compensation to those communities. And this is out of the conviction that projects which are agreed upon and owned by communities are much more sustainable than the ones imposed upon communities. So I think, as mentioned, the two organizations have been working in close collaboration, and now they are reaching to a transformative partnership level, where actually the stronger partner builds the capacity of the weaker partner. So we have, in that line, we have already embarked joint resource mobilization, that a good start, and that needs to be continued.
Thank you.
I think that is the input I wanted to add.
Thank you so much, Ayenu. I think because of time, I want to quickly move. I would like to request Jen to answer a question that came up on the CFA and conflict between riparian countries. Jen, please say something on that.
Thank you very much, Dr. Helen. Yeah, what I want to say about that is that maybe to let participants know that the NBI is having two tracks. We have the political track and the technical track. So as the Secretariat and the two subsidiary action programs, we do focus on the technical track, while the political track is by the Nile Council of Ministers and now the heads of state. So for us, our work really on the technical track is to produce facts and figures that can help with informed decision-making. And therefore, we do believe that whatever we are doing as far as the technical track is concerned take, for example, our work on strategic water resources analysis, our work on wetlands, our work on hydromet. It is meant to support informed decision-making by the people that are participating on the political track and to create a common understanding by whoever is concerned. So that is what I can say about that question, Dr. Helen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jane. Maybe I can add on, especially on the technical track. The NPD as a partner of NBI is also putting in place the idea of training and collecting analysis and submission of citizen data that can be used by NBI and the Nile Basin riparian states, so that as they go through the technical track, they have the citizen data from the stakeholders on issues that are emerging. Let's say if there are floods, if there are droughts, even on cooperation, what is the citizen data? What are the stakeholders experiencing out there? So NBD is contributing with an element of citizen data to NBI, the Nile Basin riparian states, to strengthen this technical track that they have. And also for the cooperation, the second track, NBD has signed a memorandum of understanding, as we heard from the chair of the TAC. And in here, NBD has the niche of setting up platforms for dialogue, and therefore NBD is going to contribute to that element of the dialogue platforms, so that the riparian states, the partners, the friends of the Nile can be at a platform and discuss on issues, especially on cooperation. So those are the two elements that are strongly coming from the Nile Basin discourse as a partner of NBI and working in the Nile riparian states. Before I move on to give our expert who will give us a summary of this presentation, there are still two questions which can briefly be answered by either Jane or anybody in the panel. And this touches on COVID-19. And the question is, as NBI, is there any stimulus package or agenda targeted initiative that you have advanced on affirmative research to uplift the state of women affected by COVID-19? And the second is, as a researcher in water governance issues, don't you think current management framework needs a review? For example, by focusing on new empowerment models or systems, thinking models. So the first question, Jane, probably you can quickly touch on that. The second, I will ask Mohammed Tofik, if you can touch on that. You came up with very good arenas on enabling environments. Maybe you can touch on number 2. Jane, please go ahead quickly on number 1.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Dr. Helen. Actually, I found that question very interesting. And I thought this is something that NBI could look into together with NBD. As far as, you know, how do we help the women to recover from the effects of COVID-19 pandemic? So this is something I took note of, and something that I would like to take forward to management and also engage NBD on that. So I just found it very interesting and something that is important for us to look into.
Thank you very much, Jane.
However, we are looking also already at reshaping our work plans, and with the idea of seeing how do we factor in the issues of COVID-19. But I think what has come out now is really to help the women recover from these effects. And so during our reshaping of our work plans, we intend, this is something I'll bring up forward so that it can be looked into. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mohammed, can you touch on number 2? You had these very good arenas and you touched on the enabling environment. Can you touch on these water governance issues?
Yes, I think it's, can you hear me well? Can you hear me?
Yes, we are hearing you.
Okay, for water governance frameworks for transboundary water management is very tricky indeed. And in a basin that has 10 countries with their own priorities, investment planning, culture, social differences, this all adds to the complexity of transboundary water management. But in that case, for this question, I can only think about one starting way to do it. It's not silver bullet to solve the problems, but there is stepwise way to do that. In my opinion, the first step is to, if we speak about empowerment, is to further empower the Nile Basin Initiative. That is what I think at the beginning. The Nile Basin Initiative has to take more role and more tools to implement its role in the Nile Basin, to be the umbrella that brings all the countries together and have some power to not just to organize or to share data through different platforms, but also to take part and take effective part as a strong independent facilitator in the Nile Basin. That is, if we go back to my presentation, independent facilitation is key pillar in participatory water governance. So once this exists, the role of strong independent facilitator, then we can. The second step is to manage or to bring something, to bring the different interests of the actors together in order to reach some kind of negotiation that leads hopefully to cooperation. The answer of such questions is difficult as well. So that's why I just prefer to mention the role of the Nile Basin Initiative as a leading role in achieving better water governance in the Nile Basin.
Thank you very much, Mohammed. I think you have done justice to that question. I also want to indicate here that the question from Ketashu is being answered in the forum itself. So the answer is there. We don't have to read it here and repeat it here. I would like to thank the panelists, the participants, and open this meeting to the summary at the end, which will be given to us by Sarah Pell. Sarah comes from the GIZ. She's a regional coordinator there. There is Sarah. So Sarah, please, you can give us a summary and close the meeting for us. So to the participants, to the panelists, to the keynote presenter, this is now my office. I leave the chair now and leave it and give it to Sarah to give us the summary and close the meeting. Thank you so much.
And thank you very much, Helen, also for the lovely facilitation of today's session. And also from my side, thanks to all the presenters and speakers that we've had today. I think we had some very enriching discussions also through the Q&A session. So thanks also to all the participants who posted their quite stimulating questions and inputs, I find. I've been asked to give a quick overview, a quick summary of today's session, and also what we're trying to achieve with each of these sort of summary reports is to crystallize some really solution-oriented and actionable messages to come out of the NBDF as a forum that will be made up from each of the messages of the different sessions. So I'll try to bring those to the point as well, although there will still be some iterations before the report will then be uploaded on the NBDF website. So yeah, we had a range of presentations today. Of course, first of all, on the Nile Basin initiatives work on stakeholder engagement and gender, and I think it became clear that stakeholder engagement and gender has been at the core of NBI's work for the past 2 decades, and that both the policy work and also working groups and focal points on mainstreaming gender issues are sort of at the core of those activities. We also had some input on the partnership between NBI and NBD and the sort of successes that have been achieved so far. But also still on the sort of areas for further engagement that are needed. So I think the key message here was really the community engagement and also the people-to-people exchange can help hugely in building trust and confidence, but that this process also takes time, and that the NBI and NBD partnership can help with that process, but it's also again quite a long and time-intensive process and partnership. We heard from Dr. Tabita on her experience in gender mainstreaming and analysis in the project she had worked on surface and groundwater, the conjunctive use of surface and groundwater resources in aquifers. And the gap that still remains potentially between the theory of gender mainstreaming in these programs and the actual practical implementation on the ground. So I believe her key message there was really that there needs to be a more intentional and diverse representation at the project planning and design stage to make that, to bridge that gap between theory and practice. Then we had Mohammed Tawfik presenting on the enabling environment to participation in the water sector, and there he presented an interesting model on which aspects can help further participative cooperation, especially in the Nile Basin. So we really have to think about the incentives that the different stakeholders have. So why would they participate? What are the benefits for the different stakeholder groups and different participants of a cooperation process? How urgent are their problems and interests? How is the responsibility delegated and divided amongst the different participants? And then also where a lack of trust exists, to consider bringing in independent facilitation modalities. And to consider all of these factors can really help bridge that gap between, or make the leap from a arena of contestation and struggle really to a setting of negotiation and active deep cooperation. We had our NILTAC chair react to some of these presentations, again highlighting that gender mainstreaming in the water sector is at the core of the work of NBI and also the member countries. One of the examples that was highlighted is, of course, the Zuma Hydropower project that NELSAP is currently coordinating, and there were some examples of how the implementation of this project heavily focuses on bringing benefits to minorities, disabled people, women in the communities as well. But again, the highlighting question, or the highlighting message, was that a qualitative leap is still needed to bridge theory and practice in terms of inclusive and gender sensitive water management. The discussions Q&A, let me just highlight one or two key points here. I think, it was interesting again to see that conversation went back to how to really make that leap from the policy and institutional capacity building, gender focal points, sort of the formalities, to really a more fundamental shifting of norms at the individual and organizational level. And they're the message that NBD can potentially be a very helpful vessel in bringing the theory and policies to life in practice and on the ground. And yeah, then a final comment again from Mohammed that said that NBI has the potential to assume a stronger role in the cooperation process, and could potentially even come in as a strong independent facilitator in water governance, as it is also the leading platform sort of to bring together a variety of actors. So distilling that into 3 key messages I've tried. Number 1 for me would really be that diverse representation in water bodies and partners working on water management in the Nile Basin is still lacking, including but not limited to the female representation aspect, and that an intentional effort is needed to involve women and underrepresented groups in project planning and implementation. And then also that the NBI-NBD partnership can be built upon to bring the policies and institutional arrangements to life on the ground. A second key message would be that countries and organizations have a chance to enhance the enabling environment for participation, again, by bringing out the clear benefits for different stakeholder groups, helping define the problem and urgency of different problems, delegating responsibility clearly in cooperation processes, and potentially calling upon independent facilitators if a lack of trust exists between the different parties. And then as a final message, what I heard from the discussion was that funding would be required both for the sensitization, of issues on inclusivity and gender, as well as capacity building for underrepresented groups in water resource management. Those were my key takeaways. I do hope I've captured the discussions well. This report will, as I say, be available on the NBDF website once we've finalized and fine-tuned a bit. And then all that remains for me to say is, again, a big thank you also for everyone behind the scenes, our technical team, troubleshooters, the organization team for the NBDF, and then of course, again, to Helen for the lovely facilitation and all our presenters, speakers and guests. Thank you very much. And I think that's, it for today. Thanks a lot.